This podcast, including all discussions and examples, is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any government agency or company. Today, we sit down with Patrick Shipp, Sales Operations Manager at ADS, to highlight his journey across service and public sector and how those experiences shape what ADS delivers to the warfighter. This is From the Dive Shop.
Welcome to From the Dive Shop, the podcast about all things defense. I am super excited today to have something very special. My co-host and co-conspirator is our guest today, Patrick Shipp. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you know what? No problem. You were worried I wasn't going to let you talk at all.
Yeah, just a little bit. But now I'm feeling confident because I've gotten a few words in.
Here
so
you go.
I'm ready to go.
I could have talked for an entire 45 minutes about Patrick, but instead we'll let Patrick talk today.
I do like talking about myself, so that'll work out.
I know
just
you
fine.
have a ton of great stories, and this is going to be such a good episode. If I recommend you grab a beer and sit down and just really settle in for this. So tell me a little bit about yourself, and don't start in the third grade.
Okay. All right. So, man, if I can't start in the third grade, where do I start? So, I've been at ADS for 10 years, and before that, I worked in the federal government, and before that, I went to Iraq, and before that, I did a little bit of college, and before that, high school, and
Okay, so
typical
some of the
messing
things I
around.
know about you, I'll guide this a little bit. Weren't you a full-on ski bum for a little while?
Yes. Yeah. So after high school, I went to college. I made it about a year and a half and was like, this is probably not for me. And had some buddies who wanted to go live out in Colorado and Breckenridge and ski in Summit County. And growing up snowboarding here on the East Coast, it was just one of those things. It's like, man, I want to go out there. I want to see what these big mountains are like. I want to see where the best riders in the world go. I want to get out there and I want to ride, with them and in that terrain and see what it's like. And I had 3 or 4 buddies that wanted to do that too. So we moved out there. We got a house.
That is the dream.
window.
What did your parents say?
They were cool with it. Yeah, they were pretty chill. So my dad was always real supportive of that kind of stuff. So in the after the 11th grade, my buddy Jason Monroe was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna go live down in the Outer Banks." It's like, "Oh dude, that sounds cool. Do you need a roommate?" And he's like, "Sure." So the day comes, my car's all packed up. I've got all my stuff. My dad gives me $300 and he's like, "Have a good time." And I call Jay and I'm like, "All right, man, where are we meeting?" He's like, "Oh, dude, I'm not going." And I was like, "Oh, shit." So I just got in the car. I drove down the Outer Banks and spent a summer down there working at the dunes, surfing, lived with this crazy lady. And that was a whole new experience. I'd never really lived, obviously I'm 17 years old, never lived on my own. Crazy lady. That was interesting. And
you got to tell me that story right now.
Well, so I walk into a Circle K.
I'm serious, you guys. Settle in.
Yeah, I got a ton of stories, man. Just a ton of stories. But yeah, walk into a Circle K. So I'd been staying in a campground, for a couple nights, a week, and I walk into the Circle K, and the lady behind the register says, "Hey, are you looking for a washer and dryer?" And I'm just like, "Are you crazy? I'm buying a Mountain Dew and a Snickers bar." And I've got the want ads, right? Back in the day, the want ads. I'm like, no, I'm trying to find a room to rent for the summer. And she's like, "Oh, I've got a room to rent." And I was like, okay, how much? And next thing you know, I'm standing at this lady's house and rent a room from her.
And it sounds like she had a washer and a dryer.
Yeah, someone finally bought that. And dude, all kinds of people came and went. She just knew all kinds of people, all kinds of locals. And that was a real kind of just meet new and interesting people kind of experience. And
so picking up and moving to Breckenridge was no big deal.
Yeah, no, not at all. And crazy thing about that was when I worked down there at the dunes, these 2 waitresses took pity on me, right? They had been in high school just the year before. Now they were students at UVA and they're spending their freshman summer, working down the Outer Banks. And they're like, "Hey, we've got one of our roommates out of town. Do you want to come stay with us for a couple nights?" It's like, sweet, girls are going to take me back to their house. Again, 17 years old. You're like, this is awesome. And to get there, and they're in the middle of a party, and they got these guys, and everybody takes me in. They're super nice. So fast forward 3 years later, two and a half years later, I'm out in Breckenridge, and I'm coming out of the liquor store, and I hear someone go "Hey, Patrick." And I look over, and it's one of those young women, right? She's I think just graduated. She's out there with her husband. They're working on the ski patrol. I was like, holy cow.
Wild.
Yeah, small world. Ran into her again probably like 4, 5, 6 years later up at Wintergreen, where she'd kind of, come back to make her home. Small world. Yeah,
That's
all
wild.
because I went to the Outer Banks without Jay.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you did the ski bum thing. Any good stories? I'm sure you have a lot of good stories there. Any story that you'd like to tell from that?
Oh, man. So like Summit County in the late 90s was the place to be. Like it was the spot. It was where like all the best snowboarders were coming out of. So we got out there with my buddies, and I got a job at Domino's, slinging pizzas. We didn't have a car, so I couldn't be a delivery driver, but, went out there, did that. Domino's bought my ski pass. So I had the 5 Mountain
That's cool.
season pass. So could go to like Arapahoe Basin and Breckenridge and Keystone and Vail and Beaver Creek. So it's just an excellent thing. And for me, it was awesome. Like I could walk to work. They got buses everywhere. They pick you up, take you right up the mountain. That was a really great chance to see like if that was something I really wanted to do, and what really kind of opened my eyes to is, I walked away from it at the end of the season after being there. We got out there kind of like September, probably like, September, October, and I stayed through May. And a couple of us went home and a couple of guys stayed out there. But for me, the weird thing was like, I was just like, this is like the Wild West. Like it was a lot of drinking and partying, and it was just a little too much for me. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna go home, go back to college, kind of wrap that up. Great experiences, and I still think about like some of the people I met out there. Some of those guys that, I lived with. I was just at my buddy's 50th birthday party. We'd been roommates out there.
So
and,
cool.
and got to see him. And I took my family out to Breckenridge 2 years ago, and it was awesome because we're walking around town. I'm like, yeah, I used to live. I took him to the house we used to live in. It's not there anymore. It's a much nicer house. And went downtown. We walked around. I showed him a couple of places, and I was like, I'm standing in front of this one place. I'm like, man, this looks familiar. Let me just, took a couple different angles, took a picture and sent it to my buddy Ben. And then they're like, what are you doing? I was like, hey, this is where Ben got arrested with his fake ID. And my kids are like, oh wow, Ben. I'm like, yeah, but it's like pretty cool. But when I sent that picture to the group chat. It wasn't even a group chat before I sent that picture.
Because those didn't exist.
No, I'm saying just this 2 years ago,
Oh,
right?
I see.
Yeah. Everybody was like, "We got to get together." It's been almost 25 years since we were out there. We got to do a week out there. So that's on the agenda sometime in the near future, and go out there and do that again. But
so you came back to college, obviously, and somewhere in there you joined the Army. How
does one do that?
Just explain it to me.
Yeah, so much. It's a lot to unpack there. So I guess that really starts with I came back. I'd gone to Mary Washington for about a year and a half and didn't really work out. So got to Colorado. I get my fill of that. I'm like, all right, cool. Got that little adventure in. I come back and I go to Blue Ridge Community College. And actually, I got this great story because there is so much college that you can't leave out. So much great things about college. So I was out in Colorado. I went to Colorado Mountain College, which is their community college. And it was over at the Breckenridge High School, or Summit County High School, I guess. And I'm in there. And it's like a mishmash of people. There's some people that are kind of college age. There's some a little bit older. And then there were a couple high school students in there, too, taking like an AP style class. I ended up going with like the high school kid. He was like, hey, man, do you want to go to Mexico? And I was like, hell yeah, I want to go to Mexico. A bunch of high school kids on spring break. And like one of the guys, like his dad was like, I don't know, some like oligarch or something. And we got down there and we stayed in this like crazy beautiful house, like right on the water, like in the Baja Bay and stuff. And Puerto Penasco, I think, was the town we went to. And that was like a pretty crazy experience. We came back, we stopped in Flagstaff, saw my buddy Kevin Byler, I was like, hey dude, I'm coming back from Mexico. I've got to take a shower and like stop somewhere. Please, can I stay with you?
This is the best podcast ever.
Yeah. So I put those kids up. I put all those kids up in like a Motel 6, and I was like, you guys don't burn this place down. Do not get in trouble. I'll be back in the morning. And then we came back. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. And then there's some not safe for work stories I could tell about it, but we'll talk about those later. But yeah, so I had a little bit of college under my belt. I went to community college, which was just up the road. Just drove up there back and forth. Made the dean's list because like I'm a super smart guy, just like not really applying myself in college. It was like really easy. I had like this great girlfriend. She helped me so much. She had all the classes I did, but before me. And I was like, That was the way to do it. I should have picked that up on like the first year of college.
You know, they sell something like that now. I think it's called Study Edge. My daughter used it all through college, that students who graduated and have taken all the same classes you have all the notes and all of the tests, and they help you study through it. And it's like, we paid for it through most of her college career, like $50 a month for her to have access to all of these classes that have already been taken by other people. And you got it for free just for having a girlfriend.
Yeah. Like I think the perks with that were like way better.
I think so too.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And so I finished there and I went to JMU, got into the School of Media Arts and Design, where I studied like digital video, so production, writing, editing, producing, all that stuff. And that was pretty cool. That's what I really thought I wanted to do. So I did that. That was about like a year and a half. Graduate, I'm all excited. Like, what I do, so I'm going to move to Wilmington, North Carolina. For people that don't know, people who don't know at home, Wilmington, North Carolina has the largest movie studio east of the Mississippi.
Is that still true?
It is, yeah. Screen Gem Studios down there.
Huh.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, look, they're making movies and television down there, Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill. They'd filmed all kinds of stuff. I was like, maybe I can go down there and like kind of get into the business there. I've got all the like basics of those things, and now I can go, and they have production assistant jobs and stuff. So I went down there, and I surely did not get a job as a production assistant. You know, put the resume out there, tried a little bit, ended up working at a restaurant, you know, for it ended up being about a year and a half. And then I was home over Christmas, and I was like, man, I got to like figure out how to make a little more money. Let me see what's in the want ads. And there was this ad for part-time work and money for college. And like the thing I'd learned was like college is like a great place to be. So I need a little part-time work, a little money for college. That's right up my alley. I call the number. It's the National Guard infantry recruiter. And I'm like, well, I'm already committed. Like, I've made the call. I'm going to go down and see this guy.
What a smart ad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, totally sucked me in. Like, what a sucker.
And you're a smart guy. You figured that out.
Yeah, smart guy.
Like, still
right away.
Ended up in the Army.
Yep.
They got you.
Yeah. So I went down there and I talked to this guy. You know, the National Guard, you know, it's a little more state-sponsored thing. We talked a little bit, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I went down to the regular Army recruiter and sat in his office. We talked, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. And he sold me on civil affairs. You know, talk about, I think recruiters kind of get a bad rap, right? They are offering young men and women probably one of the best opportunities out there. Like, we will send you away. We will make you stronger. We will make you smarter. We will teach you a job. And then we will guarantee you have that job for like the next 4 to 6 years. And the sky's the limit. So we went in there, he talked, and I was just like, well, you know, man, like, I don't really know if I'm ready to commit to the Army full time. What else have you got? He's like, well, we got the reserves. I'm like, ooh, now that's more my alley, right? Like, I can go kind of commit, but still only part-time. But if I really like it, I could go do it full-time, or I could just keep doing it part-time. So we talked for a couple jobs, and we talked about this thing called civil affairs. And it's like, oh, that sounds great. It's like, oh, yeah, man, special operations. Run around in civilian clothes. You know, you go to meetings, you know, meet people, and it's like really, you know, special ops. It's like, oh, dude, that sounds awesome.
And how old are you at this point?
It's like 24, I think.
So it sounds 24. Incredible.
Oh, I'm like, oh, that sounds great, right? You know, it's like, how you go to airborne school. It's like all these fun things. It's like, oh, that sounds pretty awesome. Okay, so like 20 years, I never wore civilian clothes. I went to a lot of meetings, but like none that ever made me feel like, oh, this is like some super secret stuff, and never jumped out of an airplane. But it was definitely like a life-changing thing. So yeah, I went and did that, and I did that for 20 years, and you know, a couple deployments, got to do some neat stuff, meet some really good people, got a ton of like, you know, stories and you know, like just like, I don't know, adventures, right? Like, it's just like life's kind of just an adventure, and I think it's kind of what you make out of it. You know, I'd hear people, you know, we talked to Brent Gott, you know, he's got some great stories about that and his career and how it lit up, and you know, Bill chasing pirates and stuff. But you know, it's like, it's the adventure you make out of it. It's what you want to get out of it. And I didn't say I maximized it, but I just was like, I got out of it what I think at the end of the day, what I needed.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've known you for a while and have heard some of your stories when you were, you know, when you would be activated or you'd have weekend drill, and some of the people that you had positive impacts on. I think it's amazing. And the way you put it, I guess I've never heard it put that way before from a recruiting standpoint. They really are giving you the opportunity to learn a skill and guaranteeing you a job for a fixed period of time. Now, there is the chance you're going to get shot at and sent somewhere horrible. Nevertheless, that there are two sides to that. And that retirement, I feel like we're now officially recruiting for the military, which we probably could, but that's just a really interesting perspective.
No more bonuses for me recruiting now.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, and I tell people today, it's like, look, you're 18 years old. If you go and do this for 4 or 6 years, you're going to come out of it. You'll be 22, 24 years old. You're going to be a freshman in college that's completely paid for. If you do it right, you might even have a car that's paid for. So imagine living in a dorm with a bunch of 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids don't know any better, and being able to just like, you've already been a leader, you've had that leadership opportunity, but you kind of see that, you can help people, mentor people. And you're not gonna have trouble getting up for an 8 o'clock class.
No, it gives you focus for sure.
Yeah.
I've always thought that, this is controversial, but I've always thought that mandatory military service, even if it's just for 2 years, right? Because I know a long time ago, I was going to age myself out. I didn't know what I was doing. My son just graduated from college. He's got a great job. He's moving in a good direction, but it's not like he knows what he wants to be. A few years, I don't think would have had a negative impact on him. But
yeah, well,
I'm not running for public office, so my opinions are solely mine and not that of ADS or any of our partners or other organizations. I think that's what it says at the beginning.
Like the
so I can really say whatever I want because it doesn't matter.
Well, but I think you're right. I didn't know what I wanted to do or be, and there was just, I remember sitting with my buddy Robert. He's like, man, I'm thinking, he's like, what made you do it? And I was like, man, it's not like I just thought about it, one day and it's like, I'm going to get on the recruiter and get this job. The whole reason I went to the Army recruiter was just, I'd been thinking about it for a long time. It's been, 4 years, 5 years since I graduated high school. What am I going to do? Like, what about it? Is it something I could do that I'd be interested in? My dad did it, his father had done it. Both of my grandfathers had done it. And, my family had served this country since before it was a country. And so to me, there was never any doubt that like that type of public service was something that I had in me, like all these other people did it. I'm sure I could.
But you also had in you the ability to be a ski bum and wander off to Mexico. That's beautiful. It's the Tao of Patrick. That you have both these sides. Well, thank you for your service and thank you for your family's legacy of service because it matters. And I think the way you approach it and the way you present it, it makes it really palatable. You should probably go talk at high schools. Just saying.
Well, I always tell people I was blown away when I learned that David Petraeus got his PhD at Princeton. If a recruiter had just said that, some in my 10th or 11th grade, like I'd have been out the door. I'd be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right. So you were in the Army. You worked for the Department of Energy. Is that right?
I did. So when I was in Baghdad in 2003 and 2004, I worked for a major who had a master's in public administration. He's a Durham police officer. He's like, hey, man, you ought to think about an MPA. We get back, like you go to Chapel Hill and get that. And I was like, okay, yeah. And again, I think I'm one of those people, I just really just kind of need a little direction. I just need to be told like, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you do that? I'm like, okay, cool. That's what we're doing. Let's go do it. And I thought about it and I looked at some schools and I was like, man, Chapel Hill sounds great. But UNC also has a school in Wilmington at the beach, and that sounds a lot better. And the government's going to pay for it. I like the way this sounds. So I got a master's in public administration from UNC Wilmington. Excellent program, great time, great place to go to school. Wilmington's beautiful if you haven't been there, wilmington.org. And, I'll never forget, I had a seminar class I met once a week, and I was sitting on my couch, trying to decide, hey, do I want to go tonight? I kind of want to go, kind of don't want to go, but like whatever, I'm going to go. It's like, and I remember that so vividly because during that class, we started talking about the Presidential Management Fellowship program. So we're talking about like, hey, what's life after the MPA look like? What are people going to do? And this is a program that's set up to bring in talent to the federal government that wants to move into leadership roles. So the government's looking for leaders. And you go through a vetting process. There's a test. Took this big test, and then you go to this big interview process. And then if you're selected, you can go up to DC, and they have this whole week of interviews. And you go and you meet with all these people. So I was like, oh, well, that's what we're doing. All right, let's try that. So I signed up for that. It's pretty cool. Went up to Raleigh or something, took the test. I'm sitting in there. It's like people from Duke, and like smart people, and like they're finishing in law school. I'm like, I don't know if I stand a chance, but whatever, man. I'm gonna do this. So I get selected, and like, oh, it's great, government job. And then I got deployed. And I was like, oh, sweet. So it took me a year. I came back after graduating, and interviewed all over. Interviewed probably with 12 different agencies. I interviewed with the IRS. They sent like the wackiest people. Like these two ladies that interviewed me, they were I walked out of there and I was like, can't do that. Like that's not gonna, if that's too crazy. But this guy Scott Hine, he had just come over to the Department of Energy and the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. He's like, take a shot, take a chance on you, man, if you want to come and work with us. And so I did that. I did that for 7 years. The program lasts 2 years. I rotated, worked at DC Public Schools for 6 months. They were doing a big school infrastructure program under Michelle Reed. It was really exciting. They were closing schools, but at the same time refurbishing schools and trying to make them better, make better learning spaces for students. And that was awesome being a part of that. And then I worked through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And that was just, it's like, God, we're just spend billions and billions of dollars. And we're going to help people move that money out into communities to do weatherization projects, energy efficiency projects, and stuff like that. So I worked on a lot of that. And then I transitioned into the sort of a full-time role as a program analyst. And I worked in the Office of Information and Business Management Systems, sort of the business side. And then I did some time in the Federal Energy Management Program and the weatherization programs. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
So normally, I have to say that when we interview someone on this podcast, and we've interviewed quite a few people together, if somebody follows that really linear, first I did this, then I did that, then I did this, then I did that, it can get boring. And so we try to move things around to make it more interesting. You can keep talking all day. This journey is so fascinating. I feel like I'm on a ride.
No, well, thanks. I'm aimed to please, right?
But then you ended up here.
Yeah. So after about 4 years, I was looking for something else, right? I initially wanted to continue working in the government, and finding a government job is really hard.
It really is.
Even
and that's why most
in.
people end up there for life, because once you're in, it's important. You can't get in. You can't get in halfway through your career. It's virtually impossible.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I don't have a technical or engineering background. So within energy efficiency, some of those programs that focus on technology, they would have just been difficult for me to feel like I was bringing a ton of value. I looked at some other agencies, looked at a lot of jobs, other agencies, state. I was trying to move. I was working in D.C., living in Reston. USGS had an office in Reston. I was like, I don't know anything about rocks, but I would love to work like 5 minutes from my house, So I applied for every job they had, qualified or not. Didn't get a job there. And then one day, Brent Cashman gives me a call. And so Brent, right now is our vice president of markets. When I met Brent Cashman, he was, freshman number 3 that I'd met at Mary Washington. And so we were buddies going way back, and he's just like, hey, man, we got this job for an energy category manager. Do you know anybody that'd be interested, come work in Virginia Beach? And I was like,
which, by the way, that's code. Just so you know, if anyone ever calls you and says, I have this opportunity, do you know anybody that would be interested? It means we want you. Just if you ever hear that, we want you.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm good. I'm glad I know that now. Yeah, because I wasn't sure when Brent, he's just like, so if you know anyone, I'm like, dude, why didn't you ask me?
Yeah.
I like
that is
energy.
that's the low key way of asking you, for sure.
So I applied, came down, and ended up here. Mark Libinati, Lauren Self, they all took a chance on me, hoping that it wouldn't blow up in their face. And it's been a great experience, and it was a real I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but it's like a real lifesaver. It was the change that I needed. I'd been working in the government. One of the last things I did is I worked on the Freedom of Information Act requests that we got. And it was just this kind of last straw of bureaucracy. We would get these requests, and there'd be all this hand wringing and we got to do this, we got to do that. And I was like, look, let's do what the insurance companies do. Just tell them no. And if they send another email wanting to see it, wanting the stuff, then we'll do it. But we're getting all these requests, and people want to know some really absurd things. I'll never forget, someone wanted all of our information on Henry Ford's hemp-derived Model T. So Henry Ford, for people who don't know this, he built a Model T using hemp oil to build the plastics and the materials. This is like car, and then wanted to run it on that same fuel. I'm like, oh man, that's great. Well, the Department of Energy was founded in like 1974. Henry Ford did this in like 1923. And so he just wrote back and was just like, hey, listen, our vehicle technology program doesn't have any information on this because we weren't around when that happened.
We didn't exist, and there's no internet. Please go away.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, there's nothing we can do. But, you saw a lot of that where there's just the bureaucracy around trying to get things done. And then I came here, and they were like, yeah, we move at like the speed of business, right? Like we get things done quickly. There's not a lot of hand-wringing. There's a lot, we're interested in getting stuff in the customer's hand. And that was just like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. I just need the faster pace.
Yeah. I know that this is how I very much am is, well, I don't know, let's figure it out. Let's figure out how we get that done. What's the shortest distance between where we are and what needs to happen? Yeah.
That's
well,
great.
so briefly, I was your boss.
You were, yes.
More's to the pity for you.
No, it was great.
We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. I want to talk about your first Patrick's Corner, if you don't mind. Because it's one of my favorite Patrick stories. So when I first took over the team, I had a team-wide meeting to ask everybody to come in and talk about what was going on, in their market, what had happened kind of in their last week, just sort of a general update about what was, talk about what was going on in their world. And we got in and we sat around the table, and I'll let you tell the story because it's your story, and it was so funny.
I feel like the email you sent wasn't that descriptive.
Probably not.
I think it was more of we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the numbers, we're going to talk about some data stuff,
and everybody brings something
to share. And everybody brings something to share.
I think that was what I said.
And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, man. So I'm like, God, Jen, let's come up with something. I'm like, all right, cool. I got this thing that I'll talk about. And I get in there and we sit in the horseshoe kind of table set up. And, I just kind of go sit at the end, not thinking it's the end. It could have been the first seat. Ended up being the last seat.
True.
And
the story would be totally different if you hadn't been last.
Yeah. And so everybody starts talking about work is what they brought to share. And we get around to me.
Work meeting.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, first meeting, I've definitely messed this up. And so we get around to me and I'm like, well, I don't have anything work related to talk about. I was here to talk about lighthouses and how they work. And that was pretty much the start. I had just been I'd been on a camp out with my son and his Cub Scout troop. And one of the dads was in the Coast Guard, and we were at I believe we were at Fort Story, and he was just talking about the lighthouses and how they operate, and give you the lighthouse lesson here if you really want it. But he talked about how what the ships see and how they indicate. And so I got up there and we had a whiteboard, and I was like, yeah, this is what the ships see, and this is what the red lights mean, so you don't run into the beach and stuff like that.
And of course, we were all dying because everyone else had talked about deals and customers and numbers and things like that. And then Patrick got up and gave us a Cub Scout lesson, which was utterly beautiful, and we adopted it, and it became Patrick's Corner. So Patrick had a much harder job from there forward, that in every serious meeting you had to talk about something completely random and interesting. And
informational briefings.
Informational briefings. He predicted COVID.
God, nailed it. Nailed it.
You taught us how to make cocktails.
Yep.
Oh, what are some of the other really good? It was all I know is it's quintessential Patrick that he took this, what could have been a big gaffe, right? We didn't know each other well. I was the brand new boss, and you just jumped up and were like, well, I'm not going to make something up. I'm just going to tell you about lighthouses because that's what I prepared and planned, and I just knew that we would be friends forever.
Yeah, so, it worked out. I think it worked out.
And
okay.
I still hit you up from these days for like a Patrick's Corner when I can't come up. Speaking of which, I need a Patrick's Corner on Monday. We should talk about that. So yeah, it's just been it's been great and fun working with you. So two things. One, I want to point out your shirt because we had a little conversation about Young before that. You're wearing your peace sign shirt, and tell me again what you were talking about before.
Oh yeah, well it's like working in the defense industry. Everyone thinks that you're so like, oh, you're gung ho. You just like we're here driving. Our thing is we're protecting the warfighter, right? Like it's always protecting the war, and that is so true, right? And
Absolutely.
that is so true. And but the best way to protect the warfighter is through peace.
Absolutely.
Tulsi Gabbard has said it on like several occasions when she's had different platforms, whether she was running for president. She was like, we spend so much time. We don't spend enough time doing like negotiating. We don't spend enough time doing what diplomats are supposed to do, which is like, kind of lower the temperature in the room. And, I kind of like, I always like try to remind people that too, right? It's like, hey, look, like we're here to help protect our warfighter and do the right thing by him. We should always, like, you prepare for war and pray for peace. Like, that is the most real thing. And I mean, I saw that, even like when I was in the Army, and like, I remember going to Baghdad and just thinking like, oh man, we're doing the right thing. We're going to invade this sovereign nation and overthrow their dictator. And then, to watch it all kind of like what people thought, like when all of a sudden after 35 years of dictator type rule, and then all of a sudden they had their own freedom and didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh man, like I hope they can find the peace. And
yeah.
They're getting there,
Absolutely.
20 years. But
I've always found it really interesting because I didn't come from a military background. Obviously, I've been in industry long enough now that it feels like I do. And I have friends that still make comments about the fact that I, work for a warmonger. And my answer is always, our military isn't going anywhere. We need it. We want it. And we want them to be the most well-equipped, safest fighting force in the world. And that's what we do. We just make sure that they have exactly what they need. It's an easy one. Okay. And we kind of just got to this, I think, a little bit, but you know that I'm going to ask this. What's your why?
Oh, goodness. I should have thought more about this because I've sat in enough interviews where you ask it. I really just enjoy coming to work, and I like being a part of something bigger than me. I do this. I did the reserves. I did that like part-time job for 20 years, and like a lot of people don't do like part-time jobs for that long, and I did the same job for the whole career. But I like just being a part of something. When I got done and I was like, oh, well, I don't have to do reserves duty anymore. I went straight to the PTSA at my kids' middle school and worked their concession stand for 3 or 4 years. And now I do the PTSA. And I think it's like, I like to be a part of something. I like to help other people. And I like to just, I think be someone that you can hopefully count on. And, I feel like I've got maybe like a lot of knowledge or just things I can bring in. So I want to, that's my why. It's like, I just want to be helping people, however it works best for all of us.
I love it. Do you have any parting shots?
I mean, I thought you were going to ask me about more. I got to admit, I got like a ton of stories. I bought like the whole catalog. You're asking about like the Pink Floyd thing.
Oh, I know that we're coming up on time, but I think it's reasonable. So it becomes I think it's a thread, and I'm sure this is my bias because I'm the one that brings it up, that a lot of people that come on this podcast have some sort of performative background or theatrical background. And years ago, you told me about this. Patrick was in a production of Pink Floyd's The Wall. And I just need you to go ahead and just talk about how weird that is.
Oh, no, this is like one of my favorite stories.
I love this story.
So I was like 16 years old, and Shannon Arts down in Augusta County, they had put on the year before an all-teen theater production of The Wall. And it had a live band.
And it's all-teen theater production of The Wall.
Yeah, it was very rock and roll. Like, it was very rock and roll. And they did it again the next year. And some friends of mine were like, dude, you gotta go check it out. So I went and went down. They had the open auditions and stuff. And it was kind of one that sort of took everybody, And it was a really great experience, right? I met some lifelong friends. To be a part of something that big, we did all these rehearsals. I had no idea what the play was about, right? What this rock opera was about. I'd listened to the music. I had no idea what was going on. And it wasn't until we started doing our full run-throughs, not quite dress rehearsals, but full run-throughs from start to finish. I was like, oh man, this is all like, what a story. We're gonna follow this guy's like rise and gets in the rock and roll lifestyle, but he loses his dad and then loses his wife. And there's always this like antagonist, like, wow, what a story. It's like, this is great. So I did that, I did a little singing, not like, some people really sing, but, we had big ensemble singing, and that was a lot of fun. But I mean, yeah, like we had a live band. They did this thing. We did probably like a week worth of shows. I still talk to some of the people that I did the shows with every now and then. It led to a couple other opportunities to do some performances with Shannon Arts. the director, Paul Hildebrand, he was a teacher at Blue Ridge Community College. So when I'm, making it come full circle, come back, and he was doing a public speaking class, and I was like, well, easy A right there, man. So I slid into his class, and he's like, hey, I need someone to grade papers. I was like, even better, So I worked with Paul for that. But it was just, it was like one of those just like really neat things. You can't believe it, that it's really happening, that you're getting it done. People still talk about it, when they talk about some, like when you bring it up, people that saw it, and the people that saw it, I mean, they're 40, 50, 60 years old now, even older, but they're just like, oh yeah, man, dude, that was crazy. But yeah, that was quite the experience.
I'm saying you, me, Ashley, Bill, Kyle, I feel like we need to put on a show.
Oh man, something, something big production.
Big production.
A lot of pyrotechnics.
I think it's a great idea.
It's been great, yeah.
All right, with that final fantastic idea, I'm going to wrap it up. You're the best. I'm so thankful that I get to work with you because you always have great ideas and creative ways to approach things truly professionally. You always have a different way of looking at things. You're always helpful. And if that's your why, I feel like you're hitting it on all cylinders. I not only thoroughly enjoy you as a colleague, but I consider you a friend. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Jen, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's been great.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what you guys think of that, but I think that might be the best podcast ever. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on From the Dive Shop.